Hello and welcome to another week of Tasty Tuesday. This week I'm going to be teaching you how to make your own salad dressings. So come on. So first, you always want to start with kind of a base, depending on what the salad dressing that you're making is. So I'm going to demonstrate 3 different salad dressings today. I'm going to do a ranch, because that's pretty much everybody's favorite, especially here in Texas, an Italian, and then a balsamic vinaigrette. Now the greatest thing about homemade dressings are that you can put kind of whatever flavor, extra flavor you want. With the Italian, you can put red peppers in there. You can put a salsa in the ranch. So it kind of depends on what your flavors are that you're looking for, and you can kind of cater them to what you want. Plus, you are 100% in control what you put into these dressings, so you can make them as clean as you'd like. You can also make them dairy-free. You can make them, making sure that they're gluten-free. So you really have control, and you can control the fat content and the calorie content as well. So that's something that's really beneficial. Plus, I literally, when I was researching what recipes to use and what to put into it, I had almost every single thing already in my kitchen. So it's not as hard as you think it is. It just takes a little research to figure it out. But that's what we're here for, to help you with that. Alright, so I'm going to start out making the ranch. So I don't like mayonnaise personally, so I chose not to use mayonnaise. I'm using Greek yogurt, 0% fat Greek yogurt, but you can also use sour cream. And so it takes about a cup, and you can mix them. So if you want not as much mayo, but you want to put some mayo in it, you can put, a 1/4 cup of mayo and 3/4 cup sour cream or yogurt, or you can mix all 3 together. It's really what you want and what your taste is. Also, another thing that you'll add into the ranch is a little bit of milk, because obviously yogurt is pretty thick. So if you're using this as a dip, you can stay just how it is, but if you're wanting it to be a little bit more of a salad dressing type, you want to add a little bit of milk into it. You can, once again, let's say you used a little bit of coconut yogurt to make this dairy-free. You could also use coconut milk, cashew milk, almond milk, whatever you want. So I'm going to add a little bit of this. It's a reduced fat, lactose-free milk that we just happen to have on hand. So you can also add buttermilk. So if you want that buttermilk kind of flavor, go ahead, grab you some buttermilk and add. So what I want to do is I'm using them in small jars just to demonstrate, but you can add a big mixing bowl if you'd like. And what you do is you just kind of add that milk into your consistency. So it's still pretty thick. I added about a little less than a tablespoon. So let's add a little bit more and see where we get. So yeah, it's really kind of depending on what you want and the consistency that you like. So don't be afraid to try, play around with the recipe and see what makes more sense to you and what you're using the dressing for. So, so I've added a little bit of non-fat Greek yogurt, as well as a little bit of milk to make it more into the dressing consistency. Now you want a little bit of dried parsley. So these are the types of seasonings that go into there. And especially if you have one of those generic seasoning kind of kits that you get for wedding presents or whatever, they're pretty much going to have all of the seasonings. So I'm going to have dried parsley, and I'm going to have dill, and I'm going to use chives. I opted to use fresh chives because, but you could also use dried chives. When you're using fresh versus dried, always remember that you want about double the recipe if it's going to be a fresh herb versus dried. And you can actually use fresh herbs for all of these if you wanted to, especially if you had a really nice herb garden. A, I'm jealous of you, but B, you'd be able to go out and get all your herbs from there. But just remember to double the recipe of what it says, because obviously the dried herbs are a little bit more potent. So yeah, so with chives, I'm actually just going to probably take one off of the branch, and I'm just going to use my scissor to cut it into pieces. So I feel that it's still a little too thick for my personal, actually it's probably more like dressing anyways, but you can make it kind of whatever consistency that you want. So what I will do is you're going to about a half a teaspoon of dried chives, so I would then want a full teaspoon of fresh chives. So flavorful. So I'm just going to chop it all up with my scissors, being really fancy. And no, I'm not measuring, so make sure. So especially with the ranch, obviously you want to store it in the fridge because it does have dairy in it. But what I would say is that probably the day after, or even 2 days after, you're gonna find a really nice flavor with all of the herbs kind of combining and marinating together. So I'm going to do, it's going to be a half a teaspoon of both dried dill and parsley. So probably dill is going to be one of those that you don't necessarily have on hand. I don't really remember what I was making and why I have fresh dill, or dried dill, but it's something that you know, quite a few recipes will call for, so it is a good kind of, a little bitty jar of it won't be something that's bad. And also, let's say you're making these and you want to just try it out at first. There's a lot of H-E-Bs around town, or even central markets that have bulk herbs and stuff like that you can go and get just a little bit amount, especially whatever the recipe calls for, so you can try it out first before you buy a larger amount of the dried. That's just little tip for you. So half a teaspoon of dried dill. I'm just going to directly put it in there. And then half a teaspoon of dried parsley. And then this is where you can get a little bit of kind of putting your own flair. You can put in some extra salt and pepper. It smells very lovely. Especially those fresh chives. I would really like this because I like that crunch, and it'll give you an extra, but this is something I definitely would probably put a nice bit of, like a tablespoon of salsa in it to put it over my taco salad. I'm actually going to make one of those later today, so I probably will end up turning this into that. So I'm going to also add some onion powder. I just like different flavors, and I like for them to be a little bit bold. So this is where you just want to kind of play with. I would start out with maybe 1/4 teaspoon and then add up just to be safe with whatever flavors you want. This one I'm going to put probably the same thing, about 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, because I do love garlic and I think garlic should be in everything. That and cinnamon. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of salt and pepper once again. This is completely homemade. Whatever you want in it, you can put in it. And it's interesting when you start reading the back of dressings to see exactly what's in them already, and half of the things you can't pronounce. So the greatest thing about doing this yourself is that you can pronounce everything that's in here, and you can control everything. So it's definitely one of those things that's super easy. It takes about maybe 5 minutes to gather the ingredients and then to stir all the ingredients together. So definitely something that if you have the ingredients, or even if you just want to start making them, it's super easy. Okay, so the next one that I'm going to do, I kind of picked 3 of the most popular, is going to be a balsamic. So balsamic vinaigrette. And the cool thing about balsamic vinaigrette is the base of it is really just oil and balsamic vinegar. And then you can, if you want raspberry, I would muddle some raspberries and kind of then strain it and put the juice in, or strawberries, or whatever flavoring that you want. You make it your own. So this is going to be kind of equal parts olive oil and balsamic vinegar. Basically, you can kind of control this to what you want and what you like. So it's going to be a half a cup of olive oil and a half a cup of balsamic vinegar. And just so you guys know, I'm doing smaller amounts since I'm putting them in these jars. So if you see that and say, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. And it can be any type of olive oil that you prefer, whatever you have on hand. It can be extra virgin, regular olive oil, whatever. And then a half a cup of balsamic vinegar. I just got mine from H-E-B, but if you have a preference, you can use whatever you have on hand. But once again, it's equal parts balsamic vinegar and olive oil. And so this one actually you probably won't necessarily have to keep in the refrigerator, but it will separate, so just remember that, so you'll need to shake it. So a tablespoon of garlic. So I'm going to use fresh garlic. And so what you want to do is you want to, best way, before I start knocking everything over, peel it. And you can, if you wanted to thinly dice it, you could thinly dice it, or you can, I should have peeled it before, sorry guys. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my mincer right here, and that makes it for a little bit, it's a little bit better consistency for something like this because I don't want huge chunks floating around. But once again, if you don't want any of that, you can use your dried garlic powder just the same. So it's about this kind of comes out to right about 1 clove, maybe a little bit more. So yeah. A little bit of garlic. And then this one actually calls for a little bit of mustard. And I actually have honey mustard, and the recipe also was talking about using some honey as different flavorings for it. So that would be interesting to actually try the honey mustard. That vinegar is going to be very tart, so the honey in this mustard might help to bring it down a little bit. So it's about a teaspoon. Before I have a natural disaster there. That's right about a teaspoon of, but you could use regular mustard, Dijon mustard, kind of whatever you wanted. But I was really interested in to try that. And then a little bit of salt and pepper to your liking. And that's it. And like I said, you can add fruit by muddling it, and then I would personally probably strain the juice that comes from there. But you could really technically put in whatever type of fruit juice that you wanted. And if you have a little whisk, you can whisk it all around. It's a very nice flavor. I like the balsamic vinegar when I'm not really wanting any bold. I mean, like I want a little bit of a bold flavor, but I want to taste the vegetables that I'm eating. I really like that one. So yeah, it's pretty simple. All it is olive oil, balsamic vinegar, garlic, a little bit of mustard. It can be any type of mustard that you prefer. I put a little salt and pepper, and then you can put any fruit of your choice if you wanted to make it a raspberry or a strawberry. So as you can tell, super easy to make these, and most of the ingredients that you already have in your kitchen. So the last one I'm going to do is an Italian. I figured these are kind of the three basic dressings that pretty much a lot of people use, and then there's different ones. I also have a really good recipe for a cashew tamari dressing, so if anybody's interested in that, leave us a comment and I can send you that one. It's a little bit different, but I really love it over like steamed vegetables. It's delightful. All right, so the last one, Italian. So this is going to be a 3/4 part oil and then a 1/4 part vinegar. And you can use several different types of vinegar for this, kind of depending on what you have. I would probably start out with a white vinegar, but I didn't have any on hand, so I'm going to use my apple cider vinegar that I have. So we'll see how that one tastes. And then you can use canola oil, you can use olive oil, whatever you want. I'm going to, for this one, use a little canola oil since we've already used olive oil in the other one. So once again, 3/4 cup of the oil. It's very exhilarating watching me pour this. All right. And just for these purposes today, I'm personally cutting these things in half, so don't pay attention to how many pours I'm making. All right, so 3/4 cup oil of your choice, canola oil, vegetable oil, olive oil, and then 1/4 cup of vinegar. So I'm going to use the apple cider vinegar because that's what I have on hand, and this is for the Italian dressing. So with apple cider vinegar, especially because this one has the with the mother, you want to make sure that you shake it well before you pour, or you're not going to get all the stuff that ends up accumulating at the bottom of the bottle. All right, so then one teaspoon of garlic. So for this one, I'm going to use the garlic powder, but I wanted you to see what you could use with real garlic. But you could use real garlic or garlic powder, whatever you want. And this is 1 teaspoon. And then 1 teaspoon dried oregano. I love oregano. It's one of my favorites. 1 teaspoon of basil. And then salt and pepper. So whatever you want. I don't actually know exactly the measurements of salt and pepper, but it's kind of going to be what you want and what you're looking for and what your taste buds are used to. And then salt and pepper, a little bit of onion powder. So I'm going to start out, like I said before, when you're starting out and you don't know exactly what kind of measurements you're looking for, I would start out at 1/4 teaspoon and then kind of work your way up depending on the flavor. And that's, I guess, what I would say for salt and pepper as well. It just depends on how much you're making of it. So salt and pepper, and I put a little onion powder. You can do red pepper. You can also add a little lemon juice into it and a little bit of Parmesan. I have fresh Parmesan that I was thinking of blending to make it a little bit, for it to go a little bit better with this, kind of like blend in a little bit better with the consistency, but I forgot about to do that. And of course this one's a new bottle. I thought I got all the new bottles today. Alright, so I'm using a little bit of grated Parmesan. So because I'm adding the Parmesan into the Italian dressing, I'm going to make sure that I refrigerate this. So I'm going to start out with just 1/2 teaspoon. And you can add a little bit more or less to whatever you want. If the flavors are bold enough, I'd get a good Italian seasoning and just pour some of that in there as well. Now I'm just going to take my fork and kind of whisk away. You can also use this in a bigger bowl and whisk as you'd like. It's got a very nice flavor. Probably add some more salt and pepper. Very nice aroma. So, as you can tell, super simple. I made 3 completely custom to how I want salad dressings in a very short amount of time with most of the ingredients that I actually have here on hand with me. So thank you for visiting us with Tasty Tuesday. We'll see you next week. Have a good week.